Hi everyone, it's Chris again, and today we are going to talk about this camera, a Mamiya C220 TLR. I'll tell you more after this. Mamiya is certainly my favorite make when it comes to medium format camera. It's pretty much the same way as I like Nikon. I like Mamiya's camera for the same reason. They're very well built, they are strong, and they are very well thought as well. The people who've created those cameras put a lot of thought about what it means of taking picture, being a photographer, and how all those needs can be met reliably for a long time. So this Mamiya C220 is a camera that was produced from 1968 to 1982. It comes from the C range of TLRs, and that came after the A range and C range. This C range consists of lots of different cameras. It goes from the C3 to the C330. There are differences between those cameras, but usually the differences do not matter that much. It's more about like convenience. One of the differences you find often is whether you have a knob or a crank to crank the camera. In the case of C20, you actually have both because you have a knob with a crank. That's about it. You have also some like nice to have feature on some camera, or you don't, depending on the level. But to be honest, whether you take a C3 or C133 that is much more expensive, you will take the same pictures. That's not a problem. If you're short on money, go for the C3. If you want to have like the top of the range, go for the 330. But to me, whatever one you go for, you'll have a very nice camera which is capable of taking very nice picture, because don't forget that the most important part of taking a good picture is the lens, especially for those cameras. And on those cameras, you can change the lenses like you can on a single lens reflex. We'll see that later. It's the only, no, I think there's another make of cameras that had that too, but it's a very rare feature for TLR. And it's a feature that is, I find really, really interesting, especially considering the price of TLRs. If you can just change your lens and not have to buy another whole body, it's a good thing. What is this camera? It's a medium format camera that takes 120 film. It's a 6x6, so it gives you a square image, which is a format that personally I quite like. I like square image, but it's a good thing as well is that it means that you don't have any incentive to tilt your camera. So that is good. I'd rather have a 6x6 than a 45x6, for example, like the M645. It's a camera that can be used for portrait photography, for about everything. Most often you'll find it with Mamiya C220 lenses of 80 millimeters of focal, roughly equivalent to a 50 millimeter on full frame camera. The top of the range, the ones that are the best quality are the ones who have that little blue dot. You will see them when you find for cameras. You will see that often, let's say, well, with 80 millimeters blue dot camera, that is the latest range of lenses, and that's the ones that are more sought after. You have different generation of lenses during the life of the C series body, from what they call the silver lenses, which have like silver ring here, to the blue dot, and in between there are those that look a bit like that but do not have the blue dot. The blue dot, I think, will give you better coating, but they are all good lenses. You will not be disappointed. So how do you operate this camera? First thing you need to do is to put some film in. Put the film in, you have to open the back of the camera, and you do so by moving this button here along this arrow here. okay, like this. Some other cameras, some safety, you can only do that if you put it in, I can't remember, multi-mode or unlock or something. So you have to be aware of that. This one doesn't have it. It makes your life a bit easier, but you're more prone to errors. Like usual 120 camera, you have two places for spools, and your film will go from this spool to that spool when you turn the knob. You see how it works? Not very hard. So when you want to load your film, you have to move the used spool here so that it will collect the new one. To do that, you have buttons here that you can pull, and if you twist them, they will stay pulled. So that allows you to move your spool here, and here you do exactly the same thing. You put it here and you have it in place. Next, the film. So you take your roll of film, you unwrap it obviously, and what you do is you drop it here, push that little button back, okay, and you take that little tongue and put it, there's a slot here that goes all the way through the center of that spool. You put this tongue into the slot. Not easy to do in camera. Oh, this doesn't want to go. Okay, here we are. And then you'll turn the knob, making sure that your back paper is going with it. Okay. And what you need to do now is you need to have a look at this little red dot. And you want to turn the knob until the arrow, those two arrows, come in front of the red dot. Once you've done that, you need to make sure as well that the back plate is set for the format of film you use. This camera can use either 120 cartridges or 220. They are the same format, except that the film is longer on the 220, which means that the paper doesn't go all the way on the 220, and it requires the advance and also the back plate to be a bit different. You can turn here the back plate to have it in the mode you want, 220 or 120. You have two positions. Here it's a 120 film I've put in. 220 is nowadays very hard to find, unfortunately, so I don't think you will have see. And you'll see that at the back here there is a little window that lets you know which type of film you set the camera for, 220 or 120. And then you press on both sides here and you've loaded the film. On the side here, you've got a little lever as well that you need to put on the correct position. Once again, 220 or 120. Here we've got 120. You want to be in single shot mode here. We'll talk about that later. And then you can crank until it stops, basically. Okay, you see, it's ready for the first picture. Once you've done that, you will find that the trigger still doesn't work. Okay, it's because on the 220, it's still like old-fashioned camera where you have to crank your camera twice for it to work. You have to advance the film, and you also have to crank the shutter. The shutter is inside the lens, so you do that by lowering this lever here. When I've done that, I've cranked my shutter, it's ready to go. Then I will measure the exposure of what I want to take, and I will choose the speed and the aperture. You've got a little lever here that lets you move your aperture from 2.8 to 32. And here you choose the speed. Let's go for 0.6 of a second. And I will have to focus, obviously. We'll do that. And you trigger the camera by using this lever. Up. I'll do it again because my finger was in the way here. It should not have worked. Yeah, it seems that this multi-single lever is not doing what it should be. Because it should not let me take several pictures. This little knob here is to pass from multi-mode to single mode. In single mode, although here on this camera doesn't work, in single mode it will stop you from firing the shutter if you haven't advanced the film. So every time you want to take a picture, whether this works or not, you always have to do that twice. You basically take your picture, then you roll up your film and you crank your shutter, and then you can take another picture. Obviously, before you can do that, you need to compose your picture and you need to focus. Let's take another camera as a subject. Okay, I'm going to put it a bit on something. Do I have a box? Bear with me a second. Okay, I find some tapes that I can use to level my prop. Here is it. Okay, so to focus, I need to turn the knob. The knob is on both sides. The earlier camera had it only on one, but here it is at full extension. My subject is too close, but here it should be okay. So here it's focus. I can zoom in a bit. Okay, it's focus, and if you have trouble focusing, you can use, if it wants to come, this, giving me some grief, this magnifying glass that will let you see better, knowing that you've got no help for focusing apart from a ground plate, a focusing screen that is no split level telemeter, nothing, rangefinder, nothing. So that's how you focus if you want. You also have here on the side of the camera something that will let you know where you're focusing. For example, here I'm using 80mm lens, so you've got at first the indication for 55 millimeters, 65 millimeters, or 80 millimeters. I'm using the 80 millimeters, so it will be the black line. And I can see that if here I'm focused to infinity, and if I go here, for example, I'll be focusing at roughly 1 meter or 3.5 feet. Okay, so those are, this is what those lines are for. If you want to focus because you know the distance of your subject, you can do that. It can also be used as a way for you to know your subject and set your flash correctly. Okay, so this is how you focus, you compose. It's usually those cameras come with a waist level finder like this one, but you can put a prism as well. That's optional. This knob here, you can use it to unlock the waist level finder. There are several types of prisms that are metered or not metered, or different type of metering. Okay, but the most common, and I have to say my favorite, is waist finder. What I like about the waist finder is that you can put the camera lower than your eye level, which is always good because I'm quite tall. I'm taller than most people I take picture of. So with camera with a prism, I will always take picture from above because that's where I see them from, and it's not always the best. The other good thing about the waist level finder is that you don't have camera in your face. You can still like make eye contact with your subject. You can interact, I find, easier with that type of camera than you can when there's a camera in your face. Another trick of that waist level finder is that it can be used in sport mode. I'm not sure how many people nowadays are using that type of camera to taking sport picture or action picture or whatever, but what it means is if you press on the center part here, okay, it will move your magnifying glass of the way, but you can then push that part all the way down and it will click in place. And then you have a little window here that is square. That's where you put your eye and you aim through that window there. It will give you a rough idea of what you're looking at. Well, it should be okay-ish, but it's always subject to some issues, especially with those type of camera. Those two little prong here, it's because if you are using, let's say, a 180 millimeter lens, then you can attach a little plate here, which will have a smaller hole in it and which will give you the field of view for 180. Okay, those type of plates are really hard to come by. Okay, and obviously to close the waist level finder, you have to put the magnifying glass first, then it's one side, the other side, you press the back, and then you close it that way. Okay, before we go any further, we are going to stay on composing your image. This is a TLR, meaning two lenses. One lens is the one that's the lowest, is the one that is used to take the picture. The one that is here, the top one, is the one that is used to compose the shot. Okay, and as you can see, they are not in the same place, which means that you will have a parallax error with those cameras. What does that mean? That means that you are not seeing your subject from the same spot than the camera is, or that the film is seeing it. If you are taking a picture from seeing very close, like for example here, you can see my finger, but if I put it in front of the taking lens, you won't see it. Okay, that's what parallax is. And this means that when you are close to the subject, obviously when you're near infinity, it doesn't matter. But when you are close to a subject, it does matter. If you go back here on the side of the bellow, you have another little tool here that gives you some information. And those information are used in two ways. Okay, you have for different lenses, 55, 65, 80 millimeters, 105 to 250, and you have different zones that are graded in different matter, in different way, with different numbers. And those are important in terms of composing your shot and setting your exposure. What I mean by that is, the closer you are to your subject, the more parallax error you will have. So if you are here in that zone that goes from 2 meters to 80 meters with that lens, so 80 millimeters in, then you have a white zone here with a ×1 multiplier there. That is ideal situation. That means you operate the camera like really any other camera. The parallax error in your focusing screen will be negligible. If you go further, if your subject is closer to you, you then end up in a gray area, that here marked 1.5, and then in another gray area marked 2. Actually, I will remove again the waist level finder. You can see on the focusing screen that there are two lines. The first one will be the top of your image if you're in that 1.5 zone. Obviously, it's roughly because it doesn't jump from one to another, but consider that if you are in the 1.5 mode, anything above this line will not be on the film, and obviously you will have corresponding area on the film that you can see here. And when you reach the second zone, then it is the second line. Anything above that second line will not be on your film. Everything below will be plus some more. Okay, and if you see like 3 or 4, then it's totally out of the white. There is an accessory that you can use to correct the parallax. If you are using a tripod, and because that accessory is only good if you are using a tripod, you can buy what is called, I think it's called Parmender, and it's a little tool that will screw here, or instead of a tripod, it will go between your camera and the tripod. And what it will do, it will allow you to easily and quickly move the camera up and down for exactly the same distance that there is between the center of those two lenses. Meaning that you put your camera on the lower position, you compose your shot, you're on a tripod, that's important, you're on a tripod, you compose your shot, you're ready to take the picture. Thanks to the accessory, you move your camera off exactly the right distance, and basically it will do that. Your taking lens will take the exact spot of the composing lens, meaning that you will have no parallax error at all. This is really important if you are doing macro shots, because with those cameras you can do good macro shots. Now, what about the number, you may ask? Why do we have a multiplier of 1 here, 1.5 here, 2, 3, and 4? Well, this has to do with the conception of those cameras, especially the conception of the lens, and the fact that the lens is moving away that much from the film plate. To take your lens off, you need to put this, you need to unlock them. Here they are locked, and this lever here can be activated. If I turn that, I then unlock the lens. We'll see what it does, what else it does as well. So once you've done that, you can remove this little spring and then remove the lens. Let's put the lens here for a side. Okay, and close this. What you have here is the camera without any lens. And that lock button, what it does, if you see, it moves a flap in front of the film. If I open it here, you can see the film at the bottom. It doesn't matter for me because that's just a test film that's seen the light so many times that it's not a problem. But you need to close, obviously, this needs to be closed if you are to change the lens while there is film in the camera. Okay, yeah, you see that lever inside? Okay, when I lock the thing, it put a red lever in front of your mirror that obviously you will see when you try to compose, and you will know that you need to turn that button because it's not in the right position. If you are trying to take a picture with that flap on, you won't take a picture because the light will not go through it. So here is the lens. You have two lenses, one that is just a pure glass, and the other one that is a bit more involved because that second lens has two things. You can see here, you can see the aperture blades. If I change the aperture, you can see. And what you can see behind the aperture blade is another set of blades, and those are the shutter blade. Okay, when I crank the shutter, you see the shutter is in the lens and not in the camera. In most SLR, you see that the shutter is in the body of the camera and not in the lens, which means that when you remove the lens, the shutter stays closed and you have no problem with light hitting your film. But in that camera, the shutter being here, if you remove the lens without having that flap up, it will impact your. The other thing you have, obviously, here, let me put it on pose B so that you can see better. Pose B is your aperture ring. And what it means? It means that when I focus, if I move my lens away from the film to focus it, I also move the aperture ring. And when you set your aperture, you set it to a number which is like 2.84. What it means that the size of your aperture is a quarter than your focal length. So when I close at 4, that means that I have an aperture ring that is of about 20 millimeters. If I open, you see, so that's what it does. It basically let a quarter of the light go through. And there's a relationship between the size of the opening for the light and your focal length. When you move your lens away from the film, you are basically zooming as well. You're not only focusing, you are zooming, which means that the focal length of this lens will move. This 80 millimeters, it's 80, that means that the focal length of this lens, the focal of this lens is 80 millimeters when it's focused to infinity. The closer you focus, the further away you pull your lens from the film, and the smaller your aperture becomes, to the point that you need to correct this, and that is what those multiplying numbers are. Let's say that you are focusing here, you're very close, you're focusing in the 2 area here. You are going to take a reading with a light meter that will say, for example, that you need to use f8 and 60th of a second. If you are in that zone, that means that you will have to multiply the amount of light by 2 if you want to take a picture that is correctly exposed. I.e., in that case, you will have to move your, what did I say, f8 120th of a second. You will have to take either your picture at a 60th of a second or at f5.6. You will have to make one stop, one way or the other. That is what those numbers are. And those are really important. On the 80mm, I think you live most of your life without having to bother too much about it. But if you are using longer focal range, you see that you almost straight away have to do that correction yourself. This is something to be kept in mind. You have to correct for this when you're taking picture. Depending on how far your subject is, you will have to correct your setting in order to get the good exposure. What else didn't we talk about with this camera? Flash operation. You have a cold shoe here, so you can attach all type of accessories, including flashes. And the flash will be plugged here. And you can select here in the lens the type of flash you're using, whether it's magnesium or electronic flashes. I think we've seen about everything that there is to say on this camera, except unloading the film, maybe. Yeah, the top of the range of 333 has a mechanism that will wind up the lens at the same time as you advance the film, which is a good thing. It's very convenient. But it also means that you may have compatibility issue with older lenses that have the cranking lever in a different place. Okay, and now I've done my 12 pictures. I'm reaching the end. And once that is done, what you do is then you can remove your spool. So that's about everything you need to know about this type of camera. There's quite a lot of things on this camera that need to be known. It's not as simple. The most fragile part, okay, Mamiya tends to build very strong camera that goes through the air without any problem. One of their weakness always is the bellow because of its construction, and you can see that this one suffered quite a bit. I don't know what's happened for it to be in such a condition, because often what you find is that some people have put fingers, maybe kids, but here it is used there to the point that there are holes. You can see like here someone attempted a repair at some point, and the other side as well. Good thing with Mamiya cameras, they are very well built, and although there is a hole here, like you can see here, there is no light leak yet, because as you can see here on the taking side, there is a second bellow that is inside the camera. Okay, if you see here, you can see that there is not one. I think there should be one up there as well, and it's missing. But here there is a second one that is in good condition, and you cannot see the light go through there. So that's a very, very good thing on their part. Those bellows are hard to find, expensive to replace, and it's also hard to find someone that will replace them. If you're buying them, make sure make sure that the bellow is in good condition. One thing as well I didn't mention earlier, you see that little lever here, that is what unlocks the lens. So you need to change the lens, you need to have the camera back in its folded position. And that's about it for this camera. If you have the opportunity to borrow one, to buy one, do so. They are great cameras, they are fun to use. If you're using a 80mm lens, like the one that is fine with it, you usually don't have to delve too much into those issues with the multiplicator, so that means that they are easy to use. But yeah, please be aware that with those cameras, once you get close to your subject, there are lots of complications that you can expect. Do buy one day. I mean, my advice, buy one, a better one than that one. Huh? This one, it's not in excellent condition. I've paid 150 for it, to be honest. although the buyer didn't disclose the fact that the bellow was in such a bad condition. But hey, I've sold it for $320, and I've disclosed that the bellow was in bad condition. I disclosed all the issues that there is. My advice, as I was saying, buy one if you can afford it, or if you find one cheap, use it and sell it for the price that you bought it, or sell it for more money if you can. You will not regret the experience of going through this camera. It's taking you back to the basic. Once you use a camera like that, you really have a better understanding of what your digital camera is doing, really what is involved in taking a picture, like resetting the sensor, cranking the film, resetting, like cranking your shutter, setting your aperture. You are much more involved with the inside working of your camera with a camera like that than you are with a modern hybrid or SLR. So yeah, try it. You'll like it, I'm sure. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I know that I haven't been posting video for a long time, and I sincerely regret it, but life sometimes can get in the way. I will try to post more videos more often, but I don't promise anything. But in any case, if you like this video, please subscribe if you haven't done it already. Like this picture because it will help my channel grow, and the more people watch my video and the more it motivates me to make them. So yeah, thanks for everyone that's shown support, that have asked questions, that have liked my video, that have subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate. And I'll see you next time.